Hello, family, welcome to Timeless Tales. If this is your first time watching, please consider subscribing to reach out to more people who enjoy this type of stories, and if you are a returning subscriber, I really appreciate you. Your support means a lot to our community as we grow. Sit back as we dive into the full story. Dayana was the kind of girl you couldn't help but admire. She had a warm, radiant smile and a gentle way of treating everyone around her. Her kindness made her stand out in a school where gossip and drama often stole the show. Dayana was well loved, not because she tried to be popular, but because her heart was genuine. Her closest friends were Fiona, Sharon, and Angela, and they were always together, sharing laughs, stories, and secrets in their dorm room. However, Dayana and her friends were not alike in every way. While Dayana focused on her studies, her friends had a rebellious streak. They loved sneaking out at night, slipping over the school fence to attend parties. They always tried convincing Dayana to join them, saying she was too uptight for her own good. But Dayana politely refused every time, content to stay behind. One evening, everything changed. "Dayana, come on. Just this once," Fiona pleaded, sitting on the edge of her bed. "It's going to be fun, I promise. And you deserve to enjoy yourself for once." Sharon chimed in, "She's right. You work too hard. You've never even seen what a party's like. Don't you trust us?" Angela added with a sly grin, "You can't keep saying no forever, Day. Life is about experiences. Just one night. What's the worst that can happen?" Dayana hesitated, fidgeting with her pen. "I don't know. What if we get caught? What if something happens?" Angela waved her concerns away. "Nothing will happen. We do this all the time, and we've never been caught. Please, Dayana. It won't be the same without you." Against her better judgment, Dayana agreed. Something about their persistence and promises made her think maybe she had been missing out. "All right," she said softly, "just this once. But I'm not drinking, and we have to be back before midnight." The girls cheered in excitement, pulling her out of bed to get her ready. Dayana borrowed a dress from Sharon, feeling awkward in the revealing outfit but deciding not to overthink it. When the time came, they carefully climbed over the fence and made their way to the party. The house was buzzing with energy, music blasting, people dancing, and laughter echoing everywhere. Dayana felt out of place but stuck close to her friends. "Relax, Day," Fiona said, handing her a cup. "I said I'm not drinking," Dayana reminded her. "It's just soda. Trust me." Fiona smirked and walked off. Dayana took a sip, holding the cup tightly. While others danced and drank around her, she found a quiet corner to sit. She wished she could go home, but she didn't want to seem like a killjoy. That's when a man approached her. He was tall, with an easy smile and confident air that put her slightly on edge. "Hey," he said, sitting next to her. "Why aren't you dancing like everyone else?" Dayana glanced at him warily. "I'm not used to these kinds of things." "I get that," he replied, smiling warmly. "I'm Lucas, by the way. You look uncomfortable." "First party?" Dayana nodded. "It's obvious, isn't it? My friends dragged me here." Lucas chuckled. "You'll get used to it. Sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone isn't so bad." Their conversation drifted to safer topics: school, favorite books, and childhood memories. For a moment, Dayana began to feel at ease. Lucas seemed different, unlike the loud and rowdy crowd around them. But then Angela called for Dayana. "Day! Over here," she yelled from across the room. Dayana placed her drink on the table and got up to see what Angela wanted. Unbeknownst to her, Lucas eyed her drink thoughtfully. His charming smile faded as a cunning look crossed his face. Pulling a small vial from his pocket, he poured its contents into Dayana's soda. He mixed it quickly and placed the drink back in the same spot, acting as if nothing had happened. When Dayana returned, Lucas gestured to her cup. You should finish your drink. It'll help you relax. Dayana picked up the soda, unaware of what had been added to it, and took a few sips. A strange feeling crept over her after a few minutes. Her vision blurred, and her head felt heavy. I don't feel so good, she mumbled, trying to steady herself against the table. Her friends were nowhere to be seen. Panic bubbled in her chest as she realized she was alone. I've got you, Lucas said, his voice soothing. I'll make sure you're okay. No. I don't trust you, Dayana tried to say, but her words slurred. Her legs gave out, and she fell. The last thing she saw was Lucas kneeling beside her, telling her, it's all right. I'll take care of you. Dayana woke up the next morning with a pounding headache and a sinking feeling in her stomach. She blinked against the sunlight streaming into the room and realized she wasn't in her dorm. Panic gripped her as she sat up and saw Lucas lying beside her. Her voice trembled as she asked, What happened? Lucas looked at her calmly, almost nonchalantly. We spent the night together. Dayana's breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? Did we? He nodded, and her world came crashing down. Tears blurred her vision as she scrambled out of bed, gathering her things. She didn't remember anything after feeling dizzy at the party, and the realization of what must have happened made her stomach churn. How could you do this to me? She whispered, her voice shaky with anger and disbelief. Lucas didn't answer. Instead, he watched her leave, his expression unreadable. Dayana ran out of the hotel, tears streaming down her face. She returned to school in a daze and confronted her friends. Why did you leave me there? I needed you, she yelled, her voice breaking. Sharon looked away, guilt flashing in her eyes. Fiona and Angela shrugged, their attitudes indifferent. You're overreacting, Fiona said casually. It's just a party, Dayana. What happens there happens. Dayana stared at them in disbelief. You don't care, do you? You don't care what he did to me. You were supposed to be my friends. Angela smirked, but her gaze faltered. It's not our fault you trusted him. You're the one who stayed with him. The betrayal stung more than words could describe. Dayana realized that the people she had trusted most had led her into harm's way without a second thought. From that moment on, she vowed never to trust blindly again. But deep inside, she knew her life had already changed forever. Dayana was sitting on her bed, staring at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. The two bold lines were unmistakable. She felt her heart drop as the realization hit her. No, this can't be happening, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. For days, Dayana had been feeling off, nauseous, tired, and emotional, but she had brushed it off as stress from everything that had happened. Now, there was no denying it. She was pregnant. How am I going to explain this? She murmured to herself, crumpling the test in her fist. She buried her face in her hands, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on her. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock on the dorm door. It was the school's principal. Dayana, may I speak with you for a moment? The principal's stern voice called. Dayana opened the door slowly, her eyes red and puffy. The principal stepped inside, closing the door behind her. We received information about your involvement in some troubling activities, and we've been observing your recent behavior, the principal said. Her voice wasn't harsh, but it carried an authority that made Dayana feel smaller than ever. Is there something you need to tell us? Dayana looked down, unable to form words. She felt like a deer caught in headlights. The principal sighed. We conducted some inquiries. Dayana, the consequences of your actions have put you, and this institution, in a difficult position. I'm afraid we'll have to suspend you. Your parents have already been informed and will be here to collect you soon. The words hit Dayana like a punch to the chest. Suspended? Parents informed? This was a nightmare spiraling out of control. No, please, Dayana begged, her voice cracking. I promise I'll do better. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But the principal's expression remained firm. Rules are rules, Dayana. I'm sorry, but this decision is final. Use this time to reflect and make better choices. Dayana's world crumbled further when her parents arrived. The ride home was silent, tense with unspoken disappointment. Her father drove, gripping the steering wheel tightly, while her mother sat stiffly in the passenger seat, avoiding eye contact. When they got home, the storm unleashed. How could you let this happen, Dayana? Her mother cried, slamming her hand on the table. After everything we've done for you. After everything we've been through with Sharon. Sharon was Dayana's elder sister, and her life had followed a tragic path of mistakes and regret, a shadow that had haunted the family for years. Dayana's situation felt like déjà vu to her parents, stirring their pain and anger all over again. I didn't mean for this to happen. Dayana sobbed. I didn't know this would happen to me. Please, believe me. Her father's voice was colder than ice. We don't have room in this house for someone who can't take responsibility for their choices. If you're old enough to make these mistakes, you're old enough to live with the consequences. Go to the father of that child and deal with it there. Dayana's jaw dropped in shock. You're kicking me out. You're really choosing to abandon me like this? This isn't abandonment, her father replied without looking at her. It's reality. Life doesn't give free passes for bad choices. Her mother stood silently, tears streaming down her face but saying nothing to defend her. Dayana packed her things with a heavy heart, feeling like the whole world had turned its back on her. As she stepped out of the house, her mind raced with fear. Where could she go? She had nowhere to stay, no one to turn to. She wandered aimlessly through the streets until a familiar voice called out. Dayana? What are you doing here? Mercy, a close friend from her childhood, stopped her bike and jumped off, looking concerned. Why are you carrying all those bags? What's going on? The sight of a friendly face broke Dayana's last shred of composure. She collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mercy, I messed up. I messed everything up, she cried, clutching Mercy's hand. I got pregnant. The school suspended me. My parents kicked me out. I have nowhere to go. Nowhere. Mercy knelt beside her and pulled her into a tight hug. Dayana, listen to me. You can stay with me, okay? We'll figure this out together. You don't have to do this alone. Dayana clung to Mercy like a lifeline, her tears soaking Mercy's shoulder. The next few days were a blur of survival. Mercy's one-bedroom apartment was cramped, but it was warm and welcoming. Dayana spent her days applying for jobs, determined to make a living for herself and her unborn child. But every door seemed to close in her face. We're looking for someone with experience, one employer said. I'm sorry, but you don't meet our qualifications, another rejected. One day, after another string of rejections, Dayana returned to Mercy's apartment, exhausted and defeated. I don't know what to do anymore, Mercy, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've tried everything, and it's like no one wants to give me a chance. Mercy smiled sympathetically. There's one place I know that might hire you. It's not glamorous, but it's work. The following morning, Mercy accompanied Dayana to a small, bustling hotel. The manager, a stern but fair woman named Mrs. Patel, eyed Dayana thoughtfully as she explained her situation. I'll take you on as a janitor, Mrs. Patel said. The pay isn't great, but it's honest work. Prove yourself, and who knows? Opportunities can always grow. Thank you, ma'am. I won't let you down, Dayana said earnestly, her heart lifting for the first time in weeks. The job was physically demanding, but Dayana worked hard, saving every penny she could. After months of dedication, she rented a small, run-down house to call her own. It wasn't much, but to Dayana, it was a sanctuary, a place where she could start over. Her pregnancy progressed, and despite the hardships, she grew closer to the idea of becoming a mother. Mercy stood by her side through every doctor's appointment, every sleepless night of worry. One stormy night, Dayana felt a sharp pain ripple through her body. She clutched her stomach and dialed Mercy's number. "It's happening, Mercy. The baby's coming," she gasped. Mercy arrived within minutes, rushing Dayana to the hospital. Hours later, Dayana gave birth to twins, a boy named James and a girl named Monica. The sight of her babies filled her with a joy she hadn't felt in months. "They're beautiful," Mercy whispered, tears in her eyes as she held the tiny infants. Dayana nodded, holding them close. "I promise I'll give you both the best life I can, no matter what." As days turned into weeks, Dayana adjusted to her new reality. The challenges were enormous, but every time James or Monica smiled, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her love for her children fueled her determination to rise above the obstacles life had thrown at her. 3 years had passed since Dayana had given birth to James and Monica. Life wasn't easy, but it was finally beginning to feel manageable. She worked tirelessly at the hotel, determined to make a better future for her children. Mercy helped care for the twins during her long shifts, and Dayana never missed an opportunity to remind herself how lucky she was to have such a loyal friend. "Mercy, I owe you everything," Dayana said one evening after coming home from work. She hugged her twins, who squealed in delight at seeing their mother. "You owe me nothing, Dayana," Mercy replied, smiling as she folded the twins' tiny clothes. "You've worked hard to give these kids a good life. I'm just proud to see you keep going." Dayana's determination eventually paid off when Mrs. Patel promoted her from janitor to waitress. It was more demanding and involved interacting with wealthy and influential guests, but the increased pay made the effort worth it. One afternoon, the hotel was bustling with preparation for a grand corporate meeting. Executives from a major company were coming, and the staff had been briefed to provide impeccable service. Dayana wore her crisp uniform with pride, eager to perform well and make an impression. As the meeting commenced, Dayana moved through the lobby, ensuring the guests were comfortable. She placed cups of coffee on polished tables, her practiced smile unwavering. As she turned to offer refreshments to another guest, her hand froze midair. Sitting at the end of the table was a man she would never forget. Lucas. Dayana's stomach churned. Her heart raced, and a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. He was older now, dressed in a sleek black suit, his confident posture exuding authority. But it was undeniably him, the man who had changed her life forever. For a moment, she wanted to run, to leave the room and never look back. But something inside her, the strength she had built over the years, refused to let her. She swallowed hard, steadied her hands, and completed her task. When the meeting ended, Lucas lingered in the room while other executives filed out. As Dayana gathered empty coffee cups from the table, she felt his gaze on her. "Excuse me," his familiar voice said. Dayana turned slowly to face him. "Do I know you?" Lucas asked cautiously, though a flicker of recognition danced in his eyes. She raised her chin, meeting his gaze directly. "Yes, Lucas. You do." His face paled slightly. "Dayana?" "Yes," she said firmly. Her voice held strength, but her hands tightened around the tray she held, keeping her emotions in check. "It's been a long time." Lucas stared at her for a moment, and then his expression softened with something that resembled regret. I didn't expect to see you here." Dayana raised an eyebrow. "And I didn't expect to see you again, ever. But here we are." "I know you probably hate me," Lucas began hesitantly, his confident exterior crumbling. "And you have every right to. I've wanted to apologize for years, but I didn't know how to find you." Dayana let out a bitter laugh. "Apologize? For what, exactly? For drugging me? For ruining my life? For leaving me to clean up the mess while you moved on without a care in the world. Lucas looked down, guilt written all over his face. You're right. I deserve that. I was a stupid, selfish kid back then, and I've regretted what I did to you every single day. His words caught Dayana off guard. She had expected excuses or defensiveness, not open remorse. But her anger remained. I had to drop out of school. My parents disowned me. I raised twins, your twins, on my own with nothing but the kindness of a friend to keep me afloat, Dayana said, her voice trembling with emotion. Lucas's eyes widened. Twins, he whispered, as if the word carried the weight of the world. Yes. A boy and a girl. James and Monica. They're 3 years old now, Dayana replied. Not that it matters to you. It matters, Lucas said quickly. It matters more than you know. Please, Dayana, can we talk? Let me explain, let me make this right. Dayana hesitated. Part of her wanted to tell him to leave and never come back. But another part, a quieter but insistent voice, wanted to hear what he had to say. She nodded stiffly. Fine. Meet me here tomorrow, after my shift. The next day, Lucas returned as promised. They sat in a quiet corner of the hotel cafe, tension thick between them. Dayana, Lucas began, his hands clasped tightly. I need to tell you the truth. That night, it wasn't just me. Your friends, Fiona, Sharon, and Angela, they planned everything. They brought you to me for money. Dayana's breath hitched. What? She whispered, disbelief clouding her voice. They lied to you, Dayana, Lucas continued. I was a spoiled, reckless boy back then. I didn't think about the consequences of my actions. I paid them to set everything up because I thought you were just like them. His voice broke, and he looked away, ashamed. But you weren't. You were innocent. That night with you, it wasn't supposed to happen the way it did. Tears pricked Dayana's eyes as memories of her so-called friends flooded back. Their indifference, their smirks, their betrayal. I trusted them, she said quietly, her voice laced with pain. I know, Lucas replied. And I betrayed that trust. I was wrong. I ruined everything for you, and I'll never forgive myself for it. Dayana's emotions swirled, anger, sadness, confusion. Why are you telling me this now, Lucas? Because I want to be in my children's lives, he said earnestly. I want to help you. I can't erase the past, but I can do everything in my power to make up for it now. Dayana's walls softened, but she wasn't ready to forgive completely. You don't get to just walk back in and fix everything with an apology, Lucas. I've built this life from nothing, and I won't let anyone ruin it, not even you. I understand, he said. Let me prove myself to you, to James and Monica. Take things slow, if that's what you need. I'll do whatever it takes. Over the following weeks, Lucas kept his word. He spent time with the twins, showering them with love and attention. Dayana watched cautiously, unsure if she could trust him, but James and Monica adored their father. One day, Lucas came to her with tears in his eyes. Dayana, you've raised our children beautifully. You're an amazing mother, and I respect you more than words can say. His sincerity touched something deep within her. Slowly but surely, they began to rebuild what had been broken. Months later, Lucas proposed. It was simple, heartfelt, and far from the grand gestures Dayana had expected. Dayana, he said, holding her hands tightly, I love you, and I want to give our family a real chance. Will you marry me? Dayana stared at him for a long moment before nodding. Yes, Lucas. But only if you promise to never break this family again. I promise, Lucas said, his voice steady. Their wedding was intimate, attended by Mercy and a few close friends. The twins were ecstatic to see their parents together, and for the first time in years, Dayana felt at peace. Lucas moved the family into his home, a grand mansion that felt worlds away from the life Dayana had struggled through. But despite the luxury, Dayana remained humble, teaching her children the value of kindness, perseverance, and trust. Moral lesson: life often tests us with painful trials and betrayals, but with resilience, forgiveness, and hope, we can overcome even the darkest moments. Trust yourself, and let those who truly repent and grow have a chance to prove themselves worthy of your trust.